This video is brought to you by Assemble Week. It's KALEL of KALEL Daily. Shout out 4K D-Ray, Ben Buster, Jagoda Blue 7. And shout out to you for being here. And before we get into the video, run that back.
We're brothers, we're happy and we're singing and we're still give me a high five. All right, cut and print. Beautiful guys. Dynamite.
Let's go. We have the 1995 sensational hit comedy series, The Wayans Brothers. Now, I'm excited. Aren't you excited? I gotta say, having this on physical media, DVD, it feels like a milestone. This by far is one of the funniest comedy shows from the 90s. Very underrated. Once upon a time, a flagship show of the WB network. If you don't know, go back and check, double check it. This was the first flagship show. Doesn't get any credit. Gone far too soon. Never got a final episode. Matter of fact, I'll let Shawn tell you that.
Watching television shows doesn't create psycho killers. Canceling TV shows does. The Wayans Brothers was a good show, man. It was a good-ass show, and we didn't even get a final episode.
They didn't even get a final episode. Now, let's talk about this season. Season 1, you can tell the show is kind of raw and it's more in its infancy. Whereas you can see different backdrops, different color palettes. It's more of them figuring out what they were. More of a traditional 90s sitcom of that time instead of what it became, if that makes sense. But the guest stars, I gotta tell you, this show was swinging for the fences. I mean, you had guest stars like Paula J. Parker, who was damn near full cast member.
She had the fat ass, son. I mean, it was like bang. How close were you? Real close.
You also had Gary Coleman, Garrett Morris, Bernie Mac, Richard Roundtree, and the great Sherman Hemsley of Jeffersons. How can you lose with guest stars coming in like that? And you have the great, one of my favorite comedians, John Witherspoon's, aka Pops. And Pops doesn't get enough credit. Pops steals scenes. While Marlon is the star of this show, Pops is the MVP. I can't say enough great things about him. God bless you, sir, and thank you for all you've done for comedy, because he's great. Next, we have season 2. As I say, the show starts to find itself in this season. You have a new security guard, Dee, who is great to play off of Pops John Witherspoon because they have another hit movie prior to this, which was Friday. Pops and Dee. Great to play off each other. Great to see how that chemistry is going back and forth. If you know, you know. By that little bit of change for this show, you can see the Wayans brother comedy shines more and they're coming into their own. I don't know what else to say about this season. This is where it's at, and it's classic. The more you go back and watch it, you remember this is where it's at. What I will say about the seasons going forward, season 1 was a press release. Press disc, which today is more scarce. It's harder to find. Sometimes it gets reprints, then it comes back, then it goes back out. But season 2 throughout are modded discs that you'll have to get through Warner Archive. It's great to have the physical media, but it also feels like a drawback when it's modded disc. But am I grateful? Of course. Let's jump to season 3. Season 3. This, if I remember correctly, is a highlight season. I think this might be the season where they cannot bust the rhymes, and that for me is a highlight episode. There are so many great episodes in this, and it just further show you how talented these two are. You have more guest stars, just to name a few. Faison Love, Elise Neal, the singing group In Vogue, Ron O'Neal, Helen Martin, Pam Grier, Keith Sweat, Adam West, Mr. Batman himself, The Bright Knight, and Kim Whitley. Oh, let's not forget Bernadette Standis. Yes, that's another thing. This show draws so much from the good times. You could see it. So many jokes. They bring so many guest stars from the good times on here. And their grandmother is actually played by Jeanette DuBois. I'm sorry if I'm messing up her name. She is a star of Good Times. So that's really cool to see. More to love about this season. Next, season 4. More good. And don't you love the style of the artwork? You can really see as it's going through the years, the styles of the 90s, and as they're growing, their style is changing, and also the backdrop is changing. The 90s, the times are changing. So looking at all the artworks is like a real reflection and telling of what this show and the times really were. So also highlight season, other episodes like Paula Abdul coming in, and there's an episode where she wants Shawn to give her a baby, but she wants Shawn only to be a donor, and he has to make a decision. So that's a real cool episode, and so many others. So happy to have this season also on physical media. Next, you have the 5th in the final season. It's hard to say it's the final season because they didn't get a final episode. I know. I said that right, but it's still tough for us fans of this show. Any show that's good with longevity, that's going to continue to stay around and continue to hold up through time, you're going to always be upset that they don't have a final episode. I just wish creators see this, somehow write that in their contracts that they get in a final season and a final episode of their shows, because this happens way too often. So many shows we can name has suffered this same effect. I mean, The Jeffersons, for one, high ratings, no justification to cancel the show, at least without a final episode. There's that. Pops continues to be the MVP. You start to see Shawn really figure out who he is at the end of this show. And they also take that to Scary Movie, which comes after, and White Chicks and Little Man, all movies that were hits. If you go back to this show, you see where those seeds of comedy were planted here and they blossomed into motion pictures. So
I'm on TV. Oh, man, be a star, son.
shout out to the Wayans. Shout out Mr. John Witherspoon. Shout out Miss Anne Marie. This is a classic show, one for the ages. So happy to have it. My only complaint is that it's not all on press disc. Maybe they can re-release this in press disc form with a complete series, a box. That would be really cool. Also, to do the same with the Jamie Foxx show. Release it fully, please. Make it press disc. Or at the very least, release the last season. And that is about it. I want to thank you for your time, your likes, your comments, your shares, all your support. I truly appreciate you. I see who's who and I see what's what. Thank you all. This has been another Assemble week. I'm glad to contribute to it, and I'm glad to have you here supporting it and supporting me. Please be sure to check out the rest of the Assemble crew and their contributions to the week. And with that said, you know the deal, you know the drill. God bless, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey, 4K D-Ray, you next, man. Show 'em what you got.
Wayans Brothers was a